Welcome back to the second session of mains current edge program. Last class we have extensively seen topics related to science and technology. We have had a quite broad coverage including some theoretical aspects, static aspects, as well as the recent developments that is going on in the field. So today for the day we have international relations. Now here also we will broadly cover the recent developments in focus and what are some of the historical aspects or the static information you need to connect with these recent developments that is happening. Because when most of the PYQs, if you look in international relations, these are based on specific themes. Question doesn't come on minute aspects. Question comes on themes like India-US relations or India-China relations or China as a threat to Indian XYZ policy or diplomacy or geopolitics, or you can get questions on themes like climate change and diplomacy. So these are how questions are asked. Question hardly comes on very pinpoint one particular incident has happened and what exactly really happened. These kind of questions we are not getting in international relations, and for these reason also Indian neighborhood, all this also important. Like we get questions in a repetitive manner, and if you are well prepared with the syllabus like Indian neighborhood, India major powers, and some of the international groupings that is in news, if you are well prepared on these aspects, you mostly can guess the paper. You can mostly guess what exactly is going to come in the paper, and that's why this booklet also becomes important. Like when we speak from international relations, mostly questions comes from what booklet we have made. We have seen this last year, we have seen this before last year also. So this on that should be the premise. Like when you are preparing international relations, you should keep in mind. Secondly, there are some aspects in international relations you should avoid. Like, of course, depth of knowledge is required. More than depth of knowledge, what is required, you should be able to interconnect things. You should be able to interconnect different developments going on. You should be able to understand the underlying dynamics going on when you are writing about India-US relations. How India-US relations has evolved into what we are seeing today. For example, when we speak about this Israel-Iran conflict, how this conflict evolved. See, when Trump 2.0, this conflict has escalated. You can see US also taken part in along with Israel, and there has been direct attack on Israel as well as Iran, of course. So, but what is the premise? If you look a little slightly back, you can see the premise is US withdrawal from JPCOA in 2018. And it is after that Iran has actively pursued this nuclear enrichment. And whatever that happened after 6 years or 7 years after that, that has culminated into a direct military confrontation between Israel and Iran. Now, when a question came on this, and your answer doesn't has the element of JPCOA and US withdrawal in 2018, your answer doesn't have aspects of Iran starting nuclear programs, secret nuclear programs in 2000s, and what has been the response. These aspects is not coming into your paper, or you are not able to get these interconnections, then your answer is like lagging. For all questions, for any other questions, like if a question come on say Russia, India has historical relations. You might have seen India has continuously avoided voting against Russia in UNSC in the context of this Russia-Ukraine war. Now, why India is doing that? There is historical aspects to this. This you can only understand when you have a clear picture on what exactly how India-Russia relations has evolved. So there is this interconnected, there is this broader aspects. Similarly, there are a lot of themes like going on, like world itself is shifting. If you look at the progression from 1947, that is after India got independence or after the Second World War, what we have seen is a stringent or enstrangled Cold War period, which lasted till 1990. And after this 1990 Cold War, USSR, disintegration of USSR, then the world has shifted from a Cold War bipolar world to a unipolar world, which is led by only one superpower, that is United States. And if you even look at the India's foreign policy or China's foreign policy, all these have adapted to this changing world from bipolar to unipolar world. And it is in this context we see the increasing cooperation, increasing coming together between India and United States. Now, what is happening? Now the conflicts you are seeing in West Asia, conflicts you are seeing in Eastern Europe, conflicts you are seeing in other parts of the world, it has something connected to again the world is undergoing another phase of flux. We are again moving from the US based unipolar world to there are active threats to US single polarity, or even US, from US perspective, if you look, US itself is withdrawing from its unipolar world outlook. You can see US withdrawal from Afghanistan, you can see US withdrawal from global institutions including WHO. WTO is already dysfunctional for a lot of time. So it is not like US hegemony is being threatened by other powers including China. It is beyond that. US itself is reluctant to withhold to the current system of hegemony where only US is a superpower. So there is withdrawal from US side, and there is active threats from China, Russia and other. So world, if you look at the progression, we are progressing from again unipolar world to a multipolar world where other powers are becoming quite an important players. This is another a broader context. Now, when you are writing an answer on India-US relations or say any other developments, these aspects, if you are not coming into your paper, if you are just peripheral, what is the trade issues or what is the peripheral issues, like even Trump tariffs, if you are simply writing about tariff or what, not interconnecting these issues to the broader problems of what US is facing, what the world is undergoing, if you are not able to bring this interconnectedness, then you will not be rewarded in international relations answers. This is something you have to develop, and there is one major threat in this. When we speak about what are the sources to study, even newspaper or even any other book like that is available in the market, most these books are written not optimized for mains preparation, especially for mains 2025. You don't have much time to invest on this subject. You don't have much time to read bulky books of 1000 pages. No, that should not be. There should be, you should limit yourself. What exactly is happening in the world? You should have 5 points regarding that, 5 specific points regarding that, not beyond that. So there is somewhere you need to draw the line where how much you should study. Or there are a lot of ideas like how India should handle Trump tariffs. There is no dearth of ideas in this. There is absolutely a lot of ideas, lot of editorial writers every other day is writing some perspective on this. If you're going to collect and read every news articles or every editorials that is published related to international relations, then it becomes a bulky book of unmanageable size. So somewhere, whether you are reading newspapers or whether you are reading books or any other sources, you have to draw the line how much you are going to study. And in international relations, peripheral knowledge plus the interconnection, and for some aspect you need to have the specific quality of points. This is what required. Again, value addition becomes the last stage, which where you should draw the diagrams, especially a question comes on West Asia, especially a question comes on Arctic Circle, if a question comes on India's borders. All these questions do demand you to expect, the examiner expect you to draw the diagram, and if you show the diagrammatically, of course it will add as a brownie point for your examination. This is the broad context on which we will be basing our discussion. So let's get started. Yeah, this is the index. You can go through here if you want to see the index, and we have broadly kept the booklet along the syllabus division itself. There is no other artificial elements added into it. Regarding each of the syllabus point, what is exactly going on in the news, that has been extensively covered. So again, before starting, I need to speak a value addition. I spoke about importance of diagram, importance of especially maps in IR. Again, There are, like I have seen papers where students are drawing completely irrelevant maps, where it is nowhere connected to the question being asked, or it doesn't add any depth to your answer that is being written. So forcing yourself to draw a map in every question. Suppose you got a question from WHO or say WTO, then it's not too much required to draw the map, because what you're going to see, if there is a border question, if there is a question where there is direct connection between, adding a map will add depth to your answers, then you should draw the map. Otherwise, don't force yourself to add a map in each and every answer. That's not the way. Other answers, you can look for other ways of value addition, that is keywords. There are specific keywords related to every country. India US relations, or India West Asia relations, or India Central Asia relations. There are specific keywords related to each of this country, and we have extensively covered this, extensively taken this from the newspapers and collected it for you, and this will make your life much more easier. What you need to do is, you need to read this multiple times, so that whatever the question comes, at least a few keywords, say 3 keywords on the topic should strike your mind. And it is on, if only if your few answers do strike your mind just by seeing the India Central Asia is the theme. So 4 or 5 keywords, if it comes to your mind, if you reach that level of comfortness, then it makes sense. Then you are ready to add keywords into your answers. Otherwise, just reading it once or reading it just before the examination is not going to help you. Start today, read these keywords, by heart this, and try applying this in the examination. If you undergo this process for multiple dimensions of questions, then you can use this in the real paper also. Similarly, there are a lot of acronyms. I'm not going to discuss these things. These are like factual elements. You can yourself go through this. Acronyms in news, or acronyms which a prime minister, whenever he visits XYZ places, he always come up with some acronym. So here is a collection of this. This can be used in conclusion. This can be used to state the objective of India's foreign policy regarding whatever is the question, West Asia or non-alignment movement, or whatever it's the theme that is being asked. 4P, SATI, 4C, 2I, 3T, lot there. Can go through this. So on that note, let's start with today's first topic. What is the first topic for the day? Yeah, syllabus, India and its neighborhood relations. So neighborhood, there is 2 big players, that is India Pakistan and India China, where you have so much developments every now and then. Then you have smaller countries around, like Nepal, like Bangladesh, like Myanmar, like Bhutan, like Sri Lanka, Maldives, all these countries. So have a fair idea what is going on in this country. If there is some specific news that is happening, like when the economic crisis happened in Sri Lanka, we had a question from Sri Lanka. Now what is happening, there is a political turmoil, or a new government that is formed in Bangladesh, and India has issues or concerns, or our relationships are in a worldwide after the new UNIS government has taken part in Bangladesh. So very high chance a question can come in the real exam regarding India-Bangladesh, future of India-Bangladesh relations, issues with India-Bangladesh relations. So what is the most prominent theme? Again, India-Pakistan, Operation Sindoor, India-Pakistan conflict is an evergreen topic. You should have a fair idea of this. But beyond that, whether it comes in the examination, there is maybe some defense aspects question can come. But actually discussing India-Pakistan problem, personal views are, it doesn't have too much of chance to come in the examination. No, but it is not the case with India-China. India-China is, if you look at the Indian foreign policy over the last one and a half decade, whatever decisions India has taken, it has a connotation with what China is doing. So Indian foreign policy is pivoted to China. So China's India relations, all the issues, there is high chance of question being asked in every year. So you should be well prepared on this aspect. Let's go ahead. So India neighborhood policy, what is, let's have a brief, like the content you can read from here. You might be well aware of what is India's neighborhood policy. Again, see the keyword being used. What is the keyword, that is, or acronym, that is 5S. And this is the guiding principles of India's neighborhood first policy. What is 5S? Samman, that is respect. Samvad, that is dialogue. Shanti, that is peace. Samriddhi, that is prosperity. And Sanskriti, that is culture. So these five, if a question comes on Indian neighborhood first policy, briefly state the objectives of the policy, then your answer should have these 5S aspects. And the recent current developments you can read from here. What are the causes of issues, what are the problems in this India's neighborhood policy, and the conclusion and some way forward opinions of some editorial writers is given here. Now, what I really wanted to discuss is the brief ideas on evolution of this particular policy. Yeah, evolution of India's neighborhood policy. Here with this you can able to well connect, bring interlinkages with what exactly is happening today. From 1940, this is a brief history of India's foreign policy also. From 1947, when we got independence, to 1960s. What is directing India's foreign policy? As you will be aware, we are having a colonial legacy. We are either trying to continue the colonial policies, or we are trying to fight with the colonial legacy of, like, we are supporting decolonization, we are supporting influence of foreign powers in India's neighborhood. So one is the guiding factor during this time is India's colonial legacy in foreign policy. Secondly, you all well aware of Jawaharlal Nehru's idealism, ideal foreign policy, you can say. Secondly, we have security concerns during this time also. This is the time when India-China relations gone into 1962 war, then we have 1965 war with Pakistan. So there is security aspects also dominating Indian foreign policy. So these are the three essential characteristics which define Indians foreign policy of 1947 to 1960s with respect to India's neighborhood. Not just neighborhood, that is the broader India's outlook during the time. Now some of the examples to prove this is India's Asian Relations Conference that happened in 1948. Then India has signed this Treaty of Friendship with multiple countries, with Nepal, with Bhutan, with Sri Lanka, all these countries. Again, the defining characteristic moment came in the form of Panchsheel. Panchsheel, maybe hardly you can get a direct question from Panchsheel, but the 5 principles of Panchsheel you should learn and by heart, because this is something that is not relevant for Panchsheel only. This is something which even today guides India's foreign policy. Some of the keywords from these you can use in your conclusion. Some of the keywords, it is relevant to India's defining relations or changing relations with respect to other countries also. So you should learn what are the 5 points of Panchsheel. What are the 5 points? Mutual respect, for sovereignty and territorial integrity. Second point, non-aggression. What is the third point? That is non-interference. Non-interference in what? In each other's internal affairs. Fourth point, equality and mutual benefit. Fifth and the last point, that is peaceful coexistence. So these are the 5 Panchsheel principles, and these are the defining characteristics of, especially in the context of India, China, this is there, but this is the broader framework under which India is operating with other countries. Even today, our foreign policy has dimensions of Panchsheel, so you can use Panchsheel principles in other answers as well. Now, a defining moment or a changing moment in India's foreign policy came after the 1962 India-China war. From 1960s to say 1990s, we have changed our policy from idealism to regional assertion. So India is trying to be a dominant player in South India. This exact doctrine is called as Monroe Doctrine. Monroe Doctrine, what it essentially sees is it positions India's leadership role in South Asia and opposing foreign influence, in South Asia. These were the broad ideas. India was trying to establish itself as a leader in South Asia. This was India's approach to foreign policy from 1960s to 1990s. Now this got a change when after the LPG reforms of 1991. In 1990s to say 2008, what was our foreign policy? That is economic focus. It's when we signed FTA, like ASEAN India, ASEAN FTA, India signed in deepened economic connection with other countries. So economy, after the 1991 reforms, economy was the major focus in foreign policy. It is when we designed the Look East policy. Why till 2008? This is being continued till date also, but in 2008 to present, our foreign policy took another name, that is the neighborhood first policy. Neighborhood first policy. And developmental assistance is also a part of the policy. And in after 2014, when in Modi era, what is our focus in regarding neighborhood first policy? That is humanitarian assistance, disaster response, security cooperation, political engagement. These are like institutional support, all these are different. Developmental assistance will also come. So these are broadly what is guiding India's foreign policy with respect to neighborhood in under the Modi era, that is the present time. If you look, we have issues with all the neighboring countries. Pakistan and China I am not bringing into picture. Bangladesh, you already know what has gone from a model relationship to a complete turmoil. Now with Sri Lanka, we have issues. We have issues with the communist government. We have issues with the certain political factions. Non-Tamil issue, the Article 13 issue, all this you might be aware of. Rajiv Gandhi, it led to his assassination also. So the broad picture, we have good relations with Sri Lanka after, especially after the second term of Modi and after the crisis in Sri Lanka. But being the underlying current in Sri Lanka, we have conflicts. Now the same is with Nepal. Nepal, we have huge people to people ties, we have open borders, we have huge economic engagement. But despite all of this, we have political disputes with Nepal. Not just border disputes, that is in Uttarakhand, that is the minor part. But beyond that, there is political factions which side with China and against Indian interest. So Sri Lanka, there is problem. Nepal, there is problem. Bhutan, China is making active pursuit to bring Bhutan into the table. Myanmar, there is turmoil already going on. Maldives, we know what happened just 2 years back. So our foreign policy, if you want to really critically evaluate, use all these dimensions. Think on different countries' lines, what are the problems India is facing with these countries, you will get enough points. Now, in a conclusion statement, you can include that Modi 3.0. Modi 3.0, what is exactly what we are looking at? We are looking at pragmatism. We are not ambitious on India's neighborhood role or India's neighborhood first policy. We are looking at pragmatism and less ambitious and adapting to regional realities. This is what currently guiding our foreign neighborhood first policy. This is the government principles that is guiding our foreign policy. How we reached here? Not because we don't have a noble vision. 2008 we have this neighborhood first policy, we have Gujarat doctrine, you can go through the keyword list, it is given there. So all this has noble, ambitious, great vision, but somehow this is not working with for the interest of the region. South Asia is considered as one of the least economically integrated, and there is constant political conflicts going on in South Asia. So our whatever the ideal noble vision, they are not giving us the expected results. So the government has toned down its position. Today the position is not ambitious but less ambitious, pragmatic, accepting or adapting to the ground realities of South Asia. Within this premise, India is going to looking its foreign policy in South Asia. So rest of the content you can go on through Sham Saran, what has said, Harsh Vipant and Rajamohan, C. Rajamohan, what is their political views on India's neighborhood policy, you can go through here. Now comes to the again most important India-China relations. Then you will be well aware what exactly is going on between India and China. Again, let's, like we have done for this India's neighborhood first policy, let's have an overview of India-China policy also. India-China relations. What is the earliest thing you can connect with India-China relations? Exactly, the thing, travelers, Buddhist travelers. From China to India, we have Fahian, we have Zhuangzhang. From India to China, you can write about Bodhidharma. So this is like the cultural base, the cultural historical base is the foundations of India-China relations. This is where you can really, if you can bring these aspects into your answer, that will be exceptionally novel point. We're not neglecting the current realities, but there is a cultural fabric that runs from India and between India and China. Second aspects, in 1950s, we already discussed this in brief. There is an idealism foreign policy between Jawaharlal Nehru on Indian side and Mao was the king. Sorry, not king, the president of China, Mao Zedong. Hindi, Chini, bye bye. This was the defining aspects of India-China policy, and this is what was the outcome. We have like accepted the Panchsheel, we have accepted China's one China policy, uncompromising attitude towards one China policy, and we haven't taken anything in return. We have done this on goodwill, especially this was many writers today criticized Jawaharlal Nehru for accepting China's one China policy related to Tibet, related to Hong Kong or other parts, Taiwan. The one China policy we have accepted without taking anything in return. We could have settled the borders, we could have kept Exai-Chin, we could have solved the conflict over Arunachal Pradesh, we could have used it as a leverage to better water agreements, but we were like going through a phase of idealism and we haven't done any of this. And this whole approach culminated in what? The 1962 India-China war. And this is a war where China decisively had beaten India in Aksai Chin, where they taken the around 38,000 square kilometers of the land, and of course they have beaten Indian forces in Arunachal Pradesh also. So on these both sectors, China had decisive victory over India. Even though they have withdrawn from the Arunachal Pradesh, Aksai Chin is still with China. Now post this, there was a phase of no relations with China. We have minimal political engagements during especially during the time of Indira Gandhi. Then we have minimal relations with economic, also relations with China, economic as well as political, there was minimal relations. And this was then, this phase is also called as 60s and 70s strategic distancing. It was characterized by minimum contacts. Now the fourth phase, that is in 1980s. This is when if you remember, the Rajiv Gandhi visited China. This is when we have extended the MFN status to China. In I think 1988, Rajiv Gandhi visited China. So we have rebuilding the relations. This is a phase of rebuilding relation or gradual normalization. Gradual normalization. Now, fifth, after 1990s to say 2000s, we have again economy become the focus. We have deepened the trade relationships. We have opened new like passes to trade passes, Natula. All these passes become very active for movement of goods in Himalayas. And this is also time of peace between India and China. We have in 1995 around, we have signed the friendship treaty with China. So this is a phase of economic cooperation or economic cooperation is the right word. Now this phase changed in 2000s, 2010s, and the late of 2010s we have shifted from a relationship based on mistrust and conflict. This was defined by Doklam in 2017, which much worsened Galwan Valley fight in 2020, or mutual occupation in Pangong So Lake in 2020. All this shows the ongoing conflict and confrontation between India and China. Now again we are now entering another phase, that is post 2024. We are re-engaging with China. If you remember, this is time when we, the DGM of India as well as China, have declared, jointly declared, they are withdrawing, both are withdrawing troops into pre-2020 levels in the borders around Pangong So, Ladakh and other regions in Ladakh. So we are like, and we, if you look at the Rajnath Singh recently, he took part in the SCO summit. And if you look at the statement, even though India has withheld or not signed the joint agreement or joint statement, if you look at his wordings regarding, he has met the Chinese defense minister, both are speaking about reaching a permanent solution in borders. So this is a phase where India and China is again re-engaging themselves. So let's see where it goes. Again, there is an element of mistrust whenever we speak about India-China relations. How far it goes, we have to see. But from the current standing, we are re-engaging, and this reflection is seen in Kailash Manasarovar Yatra. Kailash Manasarovar Yatra has been like restarted after 5 years. After 5 years. Now, this is the context or evolution of India-China relations. Now, what are the issues the ongoing conflicts in India-China relations. These are the major issues. One is border. China is already told, like 38,000 square kilometer of excise in China has taken after the 1962 war. On the other front, Arunachal Pradesh, China has continuous claims over Arunachal Pradesh. They named cities over Arunachal Pradesh. You can read this. These aspects are given here. India rejected Chinese attempt to rename 27 places in Arunachal Pradesh. So border is a major issue. Border dispute is a major issue between India and China. What is second major issue? That is China, again security aspect, China-Pakistan nexus. We speak about two-front conflict, and even during the India-Pakistan conflict, China was the major supplier to Pakistan. 85% of Pakistan's military equipments comes from China. So China is a major funder of Pakistan. So you can see the level of nexus that is happening between China and Pakistan, and obviously this is against India's interest, and this is directly oriented against India. Both of these countries want to restrict India into a certain clut, and this is why they are coming together, and there is no second wording about it. Another example, if you want, you can write about CPEC, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is the Pakistan extension of BRI, and this passing through Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and India has sovereignty concerns regarding this, and still the project is going ahead. Third issue is the economic imbalance. If you look at the trade deficit, it's already reached 100 billion. This is too much from Indian perspective. China still operates in a closed system where its markets are not completely open, where it has greater, even without any trade deals, it has a greater access to markets across the world. So the same thing is happening with India. Then we have geopolitical competition. What is the core conflict? What is India's geopolitical vision? That is a multipolar world. And what is China's vision? Single polar system. That excludes India. Single polar, if you speak from regional perspective, it is viewing a single polar system which completely excludes the idea of India. So this inherently, this is conflicting. Example of this, string of pearls. China is building a ports across from Bangladesh to Sri Lanka to Maldives to all the countries across India to Pakistan as a strategic ports, acquiring the ports, and which have a dual use, like trade as well as a strategic asset against India. What is India's response to this? Necklace of diamonds. This is India's counter to the string of pearls policy of China. Then you can write about the recent conflicts that is going on. 2024 diplomatic reset that we already discussed. So these are the broad premises of India-China relations. These are the issues, and firstly I have discussed how we have reached this point. Now you can relate the 75 years, these articles, these editorial summaries, you can go through and you can have much better connection. You can speak about India-Chinese attempt to rename 27 places. Any question came from these, include these facts and include the broader dimensions we have discussed so far. China building like water bomb threat. Not going into details of this you can go through the material and clarify. What are other conflicts with respect to China? China's weaponization of critical minerals. Again, a broad idea you should be having. What exactly critical minerals is a very hot topic. If you see, all major countries are in run behind the critical minerals. Should have a broad idea. In broad idea, we have covered this in upcoming parts also, but from China's perspective, this is more important. In this also can be included in like the issues between India and China. China, what is the China's problem? Like if you look at the critical and rare earth metals, China produces mines. China in rare earth or critical minerals, it produces 2 by 3rd of global rare earth mining. It produces 90% of global rare earth output. 90% of global rare earth post processing plants are in China. So it mines 2 by 3rd, it produces 90%, and post production processing 90% of the global plants are based in China. So you can see how strongly is this supply chain linked to China. Literally the globe cannot function without China, and China is actively weaponizing this. In 2025, after the Trump tariffs, China has blocked supply of critical minerals and rare earth to US. And how US is countering this? Through tariffs. US can also block artificial intelligence, AI chips supply to Chinese companies. So this is how US is countering it, but China is actively pursuing weaponization of its hold over rare earth and critical minerals. Now, broadly speaking, what are rare earth and critical minerals? You should have a fair idea. Even though they are used interchangeably at times, there is slight difference between them. What are rare earth elements? These are 17 metallic elements, especially 15 lanthanides, then 2 other metals which are scandium and yttrium. These are the exact definition of rare earth elements. The problem with these rare earth elements is not just they are rare, the problem is they are dispersed. So the availability is not in enough concentration so that we can process them. So the problem is they are dispersed so that the mining cannot be done economically. Now, what are critical minerals? What are critical minerals? Critical minerals, these are 2 basic criteria is there to define a critical minerals. That is, the first criteria is high economic importance. Second is supply chain vulnerability. That is Chinese threat and all the other supply can be disrupted over time. So these are the key characteristics of a critical, and these are not a set of defined articles. These are declared by government. Like if you look at India, we have roughly around 30 critical minerals. I think EU has 34 critical minerals. USA has 50 critical minerals. So it depends on government and the economy and the import dependence. All these factors will be taken into consideration. So rare earth elements, they are fixed set of elements which have a special location in the periodic table. Basically 17 metallic elements and with 15 lanthanides and 2 other yttrium and scandium. So these are the rare earth elements. Whereas critical minerals, these are defined by two aspects. The first aspect is high economic importance, and the second aspect is supply chain vulnerability. And this is declared by the government, and any particular element which qualifies government things, which qualifies this criteria, can be defined as a critical mineral. And currently it depends on 30 to 50 countries have defined critical minerals in this context. Rest, the about China's controls, these data points you should be well aware of. Your answer should contain the data points. Lessons for India regarding this, what is India's strategy, all these aspects you can go through the material. India-China LAC agreement, this is what happened in 2024. So you can go through the details here, some of the scholar views, some of the Chinese foreign minister, what he is saying, some of the scholars, Sam Petroda, Siraj Mohan, all these guys, what they are saying is being given here. You can go through this. Then in India neighborhood relations, another country which has very high chance of being asked in the examination, that is Bangladesh, India-Bangladesh relations. Again, the specific aspects you can go through these notes. India-Bangladesh relation, how it worsened, what is going on in between, all these are provided in detail here. What I want to provide you is an overview of India-Bangladesh relations. Now, when India-Bangladesh relations started, it started in 1971. Before that, it was East Pakistan. So, in 1971, what happened is India actively took part in this Bangladesh liberation war. So, it is with this India's role in Bangladesh liberation war, India-Bangladesh relations is starting. Now, we have signed a friendship treaty in 1972. This particular treaty is also called as Indira Mujib Treaty. Now, all this goodwill, all this great positioning gone turmoil in 1975 to 1990s. In 1975, what happened? Mujib Rahman was assassinated, and the other political faction has came into power, and this led to again phase of deterioration. Phase of deterioration between India-Bangladesh relations. And the another aspects you can connect with this is the loss of momentum of Bengali nationalism. It is when Bengali nationalism at its peak, there is good relations between India and Bangladesh. There is connectivity between India and Bangladesh. When this is replaced by religious nationalism, then there is threat against minorities, then there is confrontation, then there is issues with India, with the majorities in India, minorities in all these problems comes into picture. So this also what is Bangladesh have undergone after the death of Mujib Rahman. And again, one of the other defining parts of this phase was the Cold War. Cold War context. Cold War context, it comes often. Now the problem was with India was, even though we like appreciates the norm and India's non-aligned policy, but in practice India was aligned with USSR. India was closer with USSR, not aligned, closer with USSR, versus Bangladesh was similarly closer with US. So again we have a element of conflict which defined our relationship from 1975 to 1990s. Now it undergoes another phase, that happened in 1996 with the coming of the Sheikh Hasina party into power. This lasted till 2024, and this is called the golden phase of India-Bangladesh relations. And this relation during this phase is like appreciated as a model relationship. Model relations of India with neighboring countries. These relationships have made great strides, including signing of Ganges Water Treaty in 1996. We have land border agreement when it was in 2015. What constitutional amendment act was that? Tell me the constitutional amendment act of this Bangladesh land agreement in comment section. What was the number? So this was the golden phase in India Bangladesh relations. Again, this goes for a toss in 2024 after the exit of Sheikh Hasina and the UNIS government coming into picture. What are India's concern with UNIS government? The first concern was attack on Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. Attack on minorities. Second is the statements he made with China, where he spoke about the Northeast as a landlocked country. We are the guardians of Bay of Bengal. So he is trying to leverage his position with China, and which is again against Indian interest. And this lead to the other aspect. This get spill over into other aspect like suspension of visa, services, border incidents. We have seen the conflicts, direct conflicts between the border security force and the Bangladesh guards. We have trade disruptions. India has literally cancelled the transshipment agreement after these comments of UNIS in his China visit. So again, and India has blocked the unlimited access for Bangladesh goods into certain ports, including the Kolkata port, the Visakhapatnam port, and all. So there has been considerable disruptions in the trade aspect as well. So these are the current ongoing issues with Bangladesh. What are other inherent issues with India with Bangladesh? That is the one major concern is the water sharing issues. And which river? Again, between India and Bangladesh there are 54 rivers running, and we have only two treaties, that is the Ganges River Treaty, and we have another treaty for Kushiara River. For all other rivers we don't have any treaty. We have an interim treaty which was signed in 1984 for Teesta waters. What does this treaty says? This treaty says in 39% of water to India, 39% of water to Bangladesh, and 25% was undivided. And in 2011, after a lot of negotiations, we reached a point where we divide the water 50-50. This was a recommendation in 2011 negotiations. Now Bangladesh is opposing this, citing that it requires higher percentage, higher share. And West Bengal, it has also concern regarding the numbers, and it is saying that if higher share is given, then that will badly affect the agriculture and other aspects in West Bengal. So this is the water sharing issues between India and Bangladesh. Other issues, we have border issues. We have already discussed the security concerns regarding border. Then the big problem, that is migration, citizenship. This lead to demographic changes happening in Assam, in West Bengal, in other parts of Northeast. We have this program has aggravated with Rohingya crisis. We have conflicts regarding Citizenship Amendment Act. We have issues regarding Section 6A of Citizenship Act, which is related to Assam Accords. Okay, so these are migration related issues with Bangladesh. Illegal migrants in India, that is the major problem. Then we have political confrontations, which we already discussed. Political confrontation with the UNIS government. We have religious cultural problem issues, tensions. we have economic issues, we have terrorism issues, like the Zakir Naik videos has Bangladesh links and Al Qaeda bases in Bangladesh, all these you can connect with. We have insurgency operations being supported from Bangladesh, including ULFA. So these are the broad set of issues between India and Bangladesh. Now, if you have this information, then you can connect with the recent developments that is happening, and you can make a very good answer for these aspects. Let's go ahead. Next topic, we have India-Pakistan relations, Operation Sindoor. Again, all the factual information regarding, I know already, like most of you are already well aware of Operation Sindoor, what has happened, what was India's response, and what was Pakistan's response, and what was the end result of this. Why India agreed to ceasefire, why US, how US came into picture, what is India's stance regarding all these highly interesting stories. I hope you have a fair idea and you are well versed in this. Rest, if you don't have much idea, you can go through this booklet. It comprehensively covers this topic. Security operations and keywords. Fog of war. What is fog of war? We are not actively going into war, but we are just keeping the threshold just below the war. We are doing everything that can be done during a war, like attacking the other countries' assets, attacking, say, terrorists or bases in other countries. We're doing everything that is being done in a war, but we're not calling it a war. Then this is what exactly is called fog of war. So another keyword you can note down. Then security update, what happened after the attacks, what was a response, why US brokered India, the ceasefire between India and US, why India agreed to ceasefire, all these aspects we have covered. What is the next in line, what is the future, all these aspects has been covered. Like Indus Water Treaty also very much important for this year mains. You can go through the material, you will get enough idea for this. I'm not discussing too much into this, and the context of war, it is important, is defense diplomacy. Post this conflict, there has been huge demand for Indian equipments, including BrahMos, Tejas and other XYZ Indian defense apparatus. And if a question comes, you should cite the data. In 2013-14, our defense exports were a meager 686 crore. In 2000 FY24, 25 FY25, it has reached a high of 23,000 crore. So this graph also comes very much handy. This is a 34 times increase. So this graph you can make and get value addition points. Other factual information is given here. You can go through the material. Strategic significance, challenges of India's exports, what is the potential, all this is given here. Now we have India-Afghanistan relations. India-Afghanistan, again there is not too much of depth in India-Afghanistan relations. One thing you might have noticed is Afghanistan is one country which kept very close with India during the conflict that was going on with Pakistan. So on that context, you can prepare some aspects. What is the current status of India-Afghanistan relations, and what exactly is why is there a shift in stance of India towards Taliban? Geopolitical reasons, Iran's role, Russian orientation, Chinese growing influence, strategic interest in the region. India already has invested billions of dollars in Afghanistan in the form of dams, in the form of roads, infrastructure, parliament. So why should we step back? Pragmatic considerations, again, pragmatism is a pragmatism is a defining feature of India's foreign policy in the current times. International trade interest, INSTZ, which passes through this, where Afghanistan has a critical role to play in this. So all these aspects you can get information. Again, India Mauritius relations, which is again in news, not discussing too much, you can go through the factual information here. India Indonesia ties, again there was been like high level visits. That's why the topic is important. You can get the information from here, what is the context, what are the fluctuation, modern developments, modern concerns, way forward. All this information is provided in the booklet. Let's go ahead. Let's discuss something that is like in line with the major countries relationship. That is, let's move to the next part of the syllabus, that is bilateral, regional, global groupings, agreements involving India, and so on and so forth. Yeah, let's continue our discussion. So the next part, the bilateral, regional and global groupings and agreements involving India or affecting India's interests. We have major parties affecting India's interests. So whichever, like any global developments is going on, suppose Israel Iran war or Russia Ukraine war, how you should prepare is from the point of view of India's interest. Two aspects you can like note down and focus. How is going to, how the particular development is going to affect Indian interest, what role India can play if there is an issue in West Asia or any other part. If there is an issue going on, how India can offer solutions, or how India's position or India's policies or India's economic leveraging can offer a solution to the particular development. So these are the two areas. If Prime Minister or Foreign External Minister has spoken on the particular matter, then you can include those points also. So this is like should be the alignment or orientation of your approach to global developments. Again, RCEP, CPTPP. So these are like quite an old subject. Why this is in news? Because there has been like renewed interest. If you look at the India's approach towards these free trade agreements or groupings, then there was a time like to almost complete of 2010s and early part of 2020s, we were against free trade agreements. We are not signing a single free trade agreements. But this has, especially post COVID times, this has completely reversed. Today India is a country which is opportunistically looking at opportunities for free trade agreements with multiple countries. We already have a free trade agreement with Australia. We already have a CEPA agreement with UAE. We recently signed a FTA with UK. EU, the negotiations are going on. So India, even we are in process of negotiation in dealing with an FTA with Australia. So in multiple fronts, what you are viewing is India's changed stance. So in these changed circumstances, should India look at RCEP or joining CPTPP or other similar in regional or economic groupings? Sorry. So this is the overall context. Then the economic opportunities, trade integration aspect, economic growth, strategic, geopolitical aspects, all these you can go through this. Some in introduction what you should write on fact sheet, that is on what is RCEP or what is CPTPP, that is also given. Otherwise beyond this, these topics are like outdated kind of topics. It is not actively in news. Now one topic that is actively in news is tensions in Arctic. What is happening in Arctic? Again, this is of quite interest. Now what is Arctic? Like what is happening here, the news is being provided here. What is Arctic Council? That is the governing body in the Arctic. It consists of like the prelims facts, you can say Canada, Denmark. But if a question comes, there are two things: value addition diagram you should be ready with, and in this diagram you should show these country states where it is, like Alaska part of USA, Siberia of Russia, this Greenland of Denmark. So these areas you should show in your, and some important seas, straits, these areas you should show in your map. Which are the countries? Again, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden and United States. So these are the Arctic Council states. These nations forms international body protecting the environment, XYZ. All are NATO members except Russia. So this is again becoming a source of conflict. Reason for strategic interest, you should have some basic data. The ice are melting, the North Sea is becoming navigable and new navigation routes are coming up. So this is the one major reason. Secondly, the resources beneath this Arctic Sea, 13% of global undiscovered oil reserves, 30% of untapped natural gas, all these are being like stored within this Arctic region. Then rare earth elements, potential for new trade routes, all these are like factors why Arctic Circle becomes important. Now there are a few things which is not exactly covered. Disputes, you can go through this. Russia Arctic presence, recent developments, all this, China what is doing, all these elements you can go through the material. Again, what I need to focus is what is India's Arctic policy. Your answer should have some dimension on this aspect. What is India's Arctic policy? Now, in the formal announcement of India's Arctic policy that happened in 2022 with the release of Indian Arctic policy document, which is called as India and Arctic Building Partnership for Sustainable Development. So this gave a lot of clarity, got of direction on what India is exactly looking for in Arctic. Now there are other status. India is from 2013, since 2013 India is a observer status. India is enjoying observer status in Arctic Council. Similarly, India has a research interest in Arctic. We have the Himadri research station which is functioning in Arctic, and we have India-Russia collaboration in Arctic. Recently there has been training provided for some Indian soldiers on conditions in our northern sea. So these are broad aspects of India's policy in Arctic. So your answer, at least even if it is not asked directly, the answer should have some like diagrammatic representation. You should show these aspects, and only if you write the name of the document, the observer status, the year, the specificity, if you bring this, then that improves the quality of your answers and that will get you more marks. So next topic we have is BIMSTEC. Again, BIMSTEC versus SARC. So this can be a potential question. Like both of these are very highly like converging interest. Both of these are handling with similar countries. 5 out of 7 countries in SARC is there in BIMSTEC also. So these are very synonymous organizations, and there is a direct confrontation. India is developing or showing interest in BIMSTEC as an alternative to SARC. But there are fundamental differences between these two, so you should have a broad idea. This is also a UPSC PYQ also. 2-3 years back there has been a question directly comparing and contrasting BIMSTEC and SARC. Now 6th BIMSTEC summit that has happened. Summit was held in Bangkok in April 4, 2025. The summit's theme was prosperous, resilient and open BIMSTEC, aiming to strengthen collaboration among 7 member states. Who are these 7 member states? Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Myanmar, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Thailand. Key outcomes of the summit, you can go through the document. India's major initiatives, BIMSTEC Centers of Excellence, Bodhi program, which is a new initiative to provide training and scholarship and skill development for youth professionals in the region. So this is the program which India has initiated. Digital and economic integration initiatives, healthcare and people to people ties expansion. So these are like some of the dimensions where there is convergence between Indian interest and BIMSTEC. Not BRICS, it's BIMSTEC. Again, don't confuse. Analysis about BIMSTEC, it was established in 1997. Again, one of the stark features between BIMSTEC and SARC is SARC was established in 1980s. SAARC was established during time of Cold War. It has a Cold War origin, while this was established during post Cold War era, that is 1996. So this has lot of strategic concerns. Strategic aspects are a very much important part of this. Here we are more looking at economic aspects. So these are another like dimensions of comparison you can bring in your answer. Established in 1997, BIMSTEC received its charter only in 2022 after the Colombo summit. Now, what are the member countries? We have already seen this. Strategic importance of BIMSTEC. Not having Pakistan is the biggest advantage. Why SAARC is not functioning? Because of the infighting or the conflict between India and Pakistan taking the center stage of SAARC summits. So you can look beyond India-Pakistan conflicts and look for more economic and cooperation between the rest of the countries. So this is what exactly BIMSTEC is offering. Represents an opportunity to restore natural economic historic bonds. Bay of Bengal as the contested zone. Myanmar potential as a land bridge between South-South cooperation, South and Southeast Asia cooperation. What are the challenges? Lack of mutual trust, ongoing disputes like Bangladesh-India problems, all these are going to affect BIMSTEC. Tensions between Delhi and Dhaka. Myanmar's weakened territorial control. All these different aspects you can bring into picture. Recommendations, you can go through the material. I am not spending my too much of time here. BRICS currency, recently there has been debates on BRICS currency. On one aspect like this, the context of BRICS currency that comes from the Russia-Ukraine war. Now how it is connected, like post Russia-Ukraine war, what was the response of the West, including the Western Europe as well as the US? What was the response of these countries to Russia-Ukraine war? One, they have supported Ukraine, they have make sure there is military and other supplies to Ukraine, and that's why Ukraine is still fighting and some were doing something against Russia. Second aspect were the sanctions against Russia. There were like very severe sanctions by these Western countries against Russia. Now once there is sanctions, when your dollars has been like seized kind of, then you cannot trade in dollars. These companies cannot trade in dollars, or they don't have enough dollar to carry out their international operations. So Russia is of the interest there should be alternative to dollars, and Russia is, to some countries they are ready to trade in local currencies, and Russia is like actively pursuing an alternative BRICS to bring up with an alternative payment system through some other currencies other than US dollars. So this is the whole premise. Then when Russia is pushing for this, and there has been very stringent response from US, especially after the Trump 2.0 came into picture. Trump has openly stated that if there is an attempt to like directly build an alternative currency system alternative to dollar, then there will be very stringent actions from United States. So there has been an open challenge put forward by USA regarding this. So this is the overall context of BRICS currency. Rest you can go through the points, information, factual information here. I don't think I should like too much invest on this. Now there is BRICS analysis given here. BRICS again too much in news. Majorly what is the development, institutional development that is happening with BRICS, that is the expansion. BRICS is undergoing considerable expansion. What is BRICS? It's an intergovernmental organization of major economies comprising of Brazil, Russia, India and China. That is BRIC, and later in 2011 South Africa also joined it, making it BRICS. But then now we have in 2024 a lot of countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, like UAE, like all these members have entered BRICS. Indonesia also is a member to enter into the BRICS membership. So it's expanding and becoming a considerable heavyweight global body. Objectives you can look at here, and structure of BRICS, recent developments associated with the 16th summit, further expansion opportunities, BRICS pay system, Kazan declaration, all this you can go through this. Significance of the BRICS, again significance you write about these kind of diagrams. like population, economy. These numbers, if you can prepare, then you can clearly answer the developments related to this significance of the particular organization. Challenges associated with BRICS, India-China conflict, institutional constraints, geopolitical tensions, Russia sanctions, all these are impacting the working of like BRICS. Again, way forward, what is the steps to be taken? Another small topic, that is the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, which was launched at Brazil G20. So you can go through the why news. Again, this is a very specific news. We have, like UPSC, if you look at the PYQs, we have seen PYQs being asked on themes like climate change and diplomacy. So like terrorism and diplomacy. So that's why the context, global hunger and poverty and diplomacy can be a future questions. So from that perspective, this becomes a very important argument in your answer. SDGs and diplomacy can be a question. So in all these questions, this global hunger alliance becomes quite important. Let's go ahead. ASEAN and PM unveils 10-point plan to ASEAN. So go through this particular information. India-Saudi relations. Again, here also what I want to discuss is the recent conflict. If you look at this document, we have covered India-Saudi relations in detail, India-Qatar relations in detail. But again, year of war in West Asia, this frees from a generalistic perspective. Like this is West Asia is already undergoing different wars. Like we have a Israel-Hamas war that is going on. We have an Israel-West conflicts in West Bank. We have Israel-Hezbollah and this kind of organization against Israel fighting. So Israel is in the midst of already in a lot of wars. Then we have Syria, the conflicts going on in Syria. Then we have Yemen issues, the Houthis and the Red Sea blockage, all these issues are going on in Yemen. Then obviously there is Shia-Sunni conflict that is between these Iran-led countries and the countries led by Saudi Arabia. So West Asia is already in a lot of turmoil or already in a pre-war situation or war situation. It is on this, above all of this, we have this recent development of Israel-Iran conflict. If a question come on either West Asia, if a question come on West Asia, your answer should not be limited to Israel-Iran conflict. There are a lot of other conflicts happening in West Asia and your answer should have dimensions related to other wars also. Now, in particular, Israel-Iran conflict, what exactly this is called? Trump called this as 12-day war because it started on 13th of June and it lasted 12 days. What are the issues that led to this war? Again, I have already given you a brief. If you look at the whole politics of West Asia, this is spread between a religious divide. Religious divide between, on one side we have Shia group which is led by Iran. On other side we have Sunni group which is led by Saudi Arabia. And thirdly we have this Jewish state in West Asia, that is Israel. And there is infightings between these three groups. With over the time, these two are coming together. These developments you can see in Abraham Accords, or even those are not Saudi Arabia, but the countries which are close to Saudi Arabia like UAE, like Bahrain and other countries have started active or diplomatic relations with Israel and they are trying to economically collaborate with Israel. This is one development and this extension you can find in I2U2 and later extension you can find in IMAC. That is the economic corridor that start from India and extends till the Europe through Middle East, through West Asia, through Mediterranean Sea and reaching till the Europe. So these are all extensions of Sunni group that is led by the Saudi Arabia coming in close with the Jewish state of Israel. Now, there is a nuclear aspect here also, because we already know Israel has active functional nuclear program. So Israel is under its own nuclear coverage, while Iran is having secret nuclear program. Secret nuclear program, which is not quite secret right now, but still Iran has this program. So if in a tripartite conflict, if two parties are coming under some nuclear umbrella, then the third party is at the receiving end, because they don't have this protection. So this is also one reason why the Saudi Arabia led group either want to side with Israel or coming close to US. If you see even in this fight, if you see most of the US attack against this Iran, that happened from the bases in Saudi Arabia. US attack against this Houthis in Yemen, that also happens from their base in Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is becoming a close ally of Israel as well as US. So this is an ongoing power situation in West Asia. Now, the spark, this is not something that is happened in last year or last couple of months. This has been the defining geopolitics of West Asia over the years. Now, what recently happened is Iran's nuclear program becoming existential threat to Israel. So this has been recently what is happening. I have already told you, like in 2018, in 2000, if you look at the history, it started from 2000s, early 2000s. It is when India, after India, post-India Pokhran war situation, it is when Iran has came up with a secret nuclear program. They are developing their own nuclear weapons. Now, this reached a little bit of normalcy when this JCPOA agreement was signed. So, this was signed between the European powers as well as US and Iran. And under this, there was the nuclear programs of Iran were open to the IEAA, that is International Atomic Energy Commission or agency inspections. But in 2018, accusing that Iran is not following the conditions of this JCPOA agreement, US withdrawn from JCPOA. This happened during Trump 1.0. And post this, Iran has again actively started pursuing its nuclear programs. And Israel is accusing that Iran is having 60% enriched uranium storage. And 60% enriched uranium means that is bomb grade uranium. And Iran having bomb grade uranium where there is opacity and the IAEA, international regulatory organizations, are not involved, then Israel foresees this as a threat to themselves. They are in danger because of this, and this was the reason why Israel launched attack on Iran. So this is the overall cause, situation that is going on in West Asia. Now, some keywords again you need to know. Iran-led group, that is the Shia-led group. This is called as the axis of resistance. Axis of resistance. This is also called axis of upheaval. Now, who are with Iran? Again, Turkey, there is some extent Turkey is with Iran, but more than that, there are proxies with Iran. Who are these proxies? Proxies in Syria, proxies in Yemen, like Houthis. Even Hamas, they are like indirectly funded by Iran only. Hezbollah in Lebanon. All these guys are proxies of Iran, which functions to the interest of Iran or the Shia group. So this is one. This axis is called as axis of resistance, or another name is axis of upheaval. The second group I told, that is Saudi Arabia led coalition, and the other developments you are well aware of. Again, India, what is, again we have already discussed, study from the point of view of India. Now, what is India's policy with respect to West Asia? Everyone know, I know you will be heard of this, that is the de-hyphenation policy. What is de-hyphenation? That means it is specifically in the context of de-hyphenation policy. Specifically, this policy is in the context of Israel-Palestine conflict, and in this conflict, India supports the two-state solution, and India engages with both the parties, Israel as well as Palestine, by not being an active role, not playing any active role in the ongoing conflict between them. India independently handles Israel, and India independently handles Palestine. This is the what premise of de-hyphenation policy. And what over the time what India has done is, India has expanded this policy. And today India is in a position, India has tie-ups with Iran, India has tie-ups with Saudi Arabia, with UAE, India is a close partner of Israel, and India has humanitarian assistance in Palestine programs, developmental programs in Palestine. India supports two-state solution of Palestine. So this is the overall picture of like expanded de-hyphenation policy of India, and this strategic positioning makes India very like creative position where they can vouch for peace, they can vouch, bring people into table, they can initiate discussions, they can call for peace negotiations. All these have possibilities are on Indian table. So geopolitically, India is in a strong position because it can handle or talk with all the different stakeholders. Second, what solution India can offer? That is the trivial solutions like humanitarian assistance, crisis response. These are India's stronghold, like Operation Sindhu, a lot of operations like we have conducted in all the crisis areas, evacuating our citizens and all of this. This includes medical aid, reconstruction programs, all these comes under the humanitarian and crisis management. Third, India can expand its counter-terrorism cooperation. And now when you are writing counter-terrorism cooperation, specify what exactly you mean. For example, India can expand intelligence sharing with Israel, with Egypt, with Jordan. We can have defense cooperation, like defense exports, all these defense manufacturing. This can have support from UAE, Saudi Arabia. If you remember, Saudi Arabia and India, these two are the both world's leading arms importers. So from this perspective, Saudi Arabia can be a potential market for Indian arms in the future. This can be expanded to Qatar, because you have seen in this conflict also Qatar has been directly attacked by Iran. Oman, all these countries in West Asia, India can have defense cooperation with. Then what exactly is the fourth point, that is the economic positioning. Here also we have discussed this to some extent. India is having strong economic ties. UAE is our major trading partner. Saudi Arabia is our major trading partner. Then we have like IMEC, all these I2U2, all these ambitious projects. Then we have this International Solar Alliance, a similar green hydrogen program, all these environmentally sensitive programs. Now what we can look further is an FTA with GCC countries, India UAE CEP agreement. This can act as a model for cooperation and economic tie-up with other countries. India can expand its connectivity programs. What are the already existing connectivity program? That is INSTC, IMEC, all this. India can expand cultural ties, people to people ties. Classic example of this is the Babs Mandir. Where it is? It is in Abu Dhabi in UAE. Bollywood, yoga, soft power elements, India can leverage this. Now, another, if you speak of India as a solution to West Asia, one major aspects which you should not miss is India as a source of food security. Because West Asia, as you know, there is desert areas, this is water scarcity. Except for Israel, no other, like other countries have food security problems. Even Israel, like despite their technological prowess, food security remains a concern in the region. So India, with having this climatologically favorable position, as well as we have a dominant player in agriculture, so India can be a source of food security for West Asia. So these are the different dimensions. If a question comes on India, what India can offer to West Asia in this situation of turmoil, if a question comes on that aspect, these are the things you should write in your answers. Now let's go ahead. IMEC, all this factual information, what is the issues, concerns regarding these, all these are provided in the booklet. You can go through this. Israel Hamas war, there is information provided why this war is continuing, what are the implications on the world, what are implications on India, all these are covered in detail. Go through the material. Now coming to the next part of the syllabus, that is effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest and Indian diaspora. So this is very few major developments are happening. India, China we already see. So that is one of the major countries. Second, we need to see about regarding US, because a lot of things are happening with US. With Trump 2.0, Trump tariffs, there is a lot of discussions, there is a lot of engagement or withdrawal from organizations, or giving support to war and changing the stances on international issues. So there is a lot of things that is happening with the United States and how it is going to affect India's position or India's interest and how we are going to deal with this. This is one aspect. Second, another country new in news, especially regarding this context itself, that is India, US polling and following an unpredictable foreign policy, that is EU, that is European Union. And it is in the context of the problems created by an unpredictable US. It is in this context, a close relation between India and European Union becomes inevitable. So, what significance of India Europe in this context is quite relevant for the examination. And thirdly, we have this Indo-Russia relations, how it plays out in this turbulent time, or even there is confrontation, how this confrontation is going in this context. All these elements becomes important. So we will start the discussion on Trump tariffs. So let's start with Trump tariffs. There are, like, everyone know what is exactly Trump tariff. Like US President Donald Trump and his second term, he is keeping a base for the tariff rates. Usually what happens is, US being its strong economic position, they offer a very highly reduced tariff rates compared to other places. So this leveraging has been stopped. This is also an explanation for, like, US withdrawing from the unipolar world system. So yeah, what exactly is happening? 10% floor tariff will be there, and depending on the countries, there are different tariff rates. What India got is 26%. China, they have like started retaliatory tariffs with against the Trump's policy, and they have both escalated to 200+% tariff rates. Now there are certain numbers you should be aware of Trump tariffs. Regarding Trump tariffs, what exactly are these numbers? Like on India, what is the tariff rate? That is 26%. And what is the current rate of tariff? On weighted average, what is the current rate of tariff? That is on US exports to India, that is a tariff rate of 17%. This is US exports to India. Weighted average means it is giving a weightage depending upon the economic quantity, economic volume. And on Indian exports to US, there is a current tariff rate of 3.3%. This is weighted average of Indian exports to US. And this 3.3% is being increased to 26%. So this is an 8 times increase in tariff rates. So obviously this is going to negatively impact Indian exports to US. US is the highest exporting country from India. So this is definitely an economic challenge. Now you need to again understand the context. Let's briefly understand the evolution of India-US relations. India-US relations. Now from 1947 to 1990s, this was Cold War estrangement. What was happening during this time? Because India was siding with USSR, or India was more close to USSR and USA was more close to Pakistan. So this was leading to conflicts, and throughout our relations during this time, we can see this polar divide between these two countries. In 1971 war, where the Nixon, who was the US president during the time, he actively supported Pakistan and USSR actively supported India. So this is the estranged characteristics of both these democracies throughout the Cold War period. Now this has came to an end in 1990s. So 90s there are two developments that is happening. That is, one thing is this end of Cold War and the rise of unipolar world with US as the only superpower. And from Indian perspective, we have undergone the LPG reforms, that is liberalization, privatization and globalization. So this has led to a complete transition. This transition was characterized by two things. One is India adapting to new realities, India adapting to unipolar world. And India was coming out of its Cold War cocoon, that it will not trade with other countries, it will not deal with foreign investment, it will not accept. So from this cocoon of colonialism and Cold War, it was coming out in 1990s, and this has again, like we have discussed in China, the economy was the focus. But this whole goodwill came to an halt in 1998. This is when India done the Pokhran 2. That is India's nuclear experiment. When India had done this Pokhran 2 nuclear experiment, then US has acted stringently by imposing sanctions on India. So this was again a recent times, this was a lowest point in India-US relations. But if you look at the overall profile, late by 2000s, this has changed dramatically. This has changed in 2008, if you see, India has started 123 agreement, civil nuclear agreement we have started with US. Then by 2016, we have got the major defense partner, then Quad, all these positive aspects of India's relationship with US is being seen is 210s. Now why this is happening? What was the reason why India stands, or US stands against India after India has conducted a nuclear experiment, after US imposed stringent sanctions on India? What really changed the scenario? It was in early 2000s or mid of 2000s. It was when US realized that India is not the threat. The threat is China. And a strong India in Asia is in line with US interest. This was a change in stance of US policy in say early 2000s, sorry, mid of 2000s. So this realization has been the guiding principle in India US relations from say 2005 to current date. Of course, there is disruptions to this policy from Trump 2.0, but say overall continuity, if we look at it, this has been the gradual development, gradual phase. Getting now, like this is why there is support for in US for India in different organizations, whether it is UNSC, whether it is in other global organizations, there is greater role for India because USA is actively supporting greater role for India as a counterweight to China, and this is what exactly that is happening in Indo-Pacific. The Quad grouping, the I2U2 grouping, the other groupings, all these India's role is heightened because of US sees India as a strong India within its interest. Are you understanding the dynamics going on here? Now defense, we have a lot of agreements, like we have GSMOA agreement, LEMOA agreement, all this agreement you can mention in your answer. So this is the overall picture of Indo-US relations. And then again the trade aspects you have to, like if you are writing about these kind of questions on Trump tariffs, or then economic aspects, points you have to bring. And recent Modi visit, we have signed a not free trade agreement but ambitious target of having 500 billion trade with US by between India and US by 2030. So this is our trade target. Rest the numbers, the issues, the particular issues regarding these, all these are given in your paper. Again, in editorials, if you look, there are a lot of writers, editorial writers. Ashok Gulati is one of them, and a lot of writers are giving different perspective how India should handle this Trump tariff situation. So you don't need to dig deep into it. You should have a fair idea what are the different options. One option is retaliation, like what China is doing, and another extreme option will be doing nothing, like accepting the tariffs as it is. Now what government is doing, this is you should be aware of. Like government is not underplaying the role of tariffs. Government is like negotiating with US. Government is trying to settle a trade deal with the US, and government position is to have a trade deal will be in interest of India as well as US. So this is the overall development, set of developments that is happening. And if there is any recent changes in July, we will cover it up in the updation material. So rest you can go through this document. Narendra Modi visit to US after Trump came into power, and what are the key outcomes of this 500 billion trade target I have already told. There are other lot of F-35 jets issues. This guy, what is his name, Tahavu Rana extradition, this was also deal was like finalized during the visit, Prime Minister's visit. US aid controversy, this is regarding the role of US agencies in conflicts are going on in Bangladesh and electioneering in India. So there is accusations basically. You can read the details here. Musk doggy. This is, even though a direct question may not come, but you should include this in some of your points, IR or some of your answers. What exactly this is? This is Department of Government Efficiency. That is DOGE is about. And this is officially not a government department but a advisory group. And what advice it give to US government on cutting cost. Objective is cutting cost. So when should India also need such an organization? How this kind of an initiative India will check, like productivity of government officials or other aspects like corruption. All these aspects, how we can tackle this through such an organization. What is the feasibility of such an organization of in India? On this regard, you should have a fair idea. Rest, what is these information you can go through here. Trump's pull out from Paris Agreement, WHO, how it is going to impact the world, how it is going to impact India's interest. All these aspects you can get from the immigration agenda, H1B visa, all these issues you can go through the material. I am not spending too much time here. India EU relations. Again, India EU relations is so much in context, because what is the context? That is an unpredictable US. That is what is bringing India and EU together, because these countries have similar expectations from United States. And when the similar expectation is undergoing turmoil, there should be some counterweights. And EU can be a replacement for US, at least in certain trade or economy or some related aspects. India can view EU as a replacement of United States, even though as such for the world there is no replacement for United States. So from in this context, EU becomes very important, and you can go through the details here. Again, I am not going to teach you everything. The objective of this course is not to teach you each and every content. You go through this material and get your hold of it. Now, India UK relations, similar to India EU, we have a recent FTA, and why India is showing a renewed interest in FTAs in recent past, from strategic shift to Western markets to boosting exports, economic growth, Indian policies, global value chain integration process that is happening, strategic goals out of this FDI attraction. So India's development goals, India's strategic positioning, India's economic positioning, and geopolitics that is happening, that is companies are withdrawing from this China and they are looking for alternative markets. So all these are alternative investment plans. Also all these are impacting what is exactly going on between the two countries, between India's renewed interest in FTA. The data, the factual examples, you can go through this material here. India, France, Russia, Ukraine war, and before, like we have done about US, I want to little bit give you more information on India, Russia. This is very similar to what we have seen in India, US. In 1947 to 1950s, this was the foundation phase. And during this phase there was minimal relations, but the positive interactions, especially due to the colonial past, especially due to the some level of presence of communism in India, there was coming close of India and Russia. Now this whole change started changing from 1960s. You might have known about India's second, third 5-year plans, and second 5-year plans were India's objective was heavy industrialization, and where India was getting technology funding support for heavy industrialization, that was supported by Russia. So our relations have gone through a close phase from 1960 to 1980s. This was like Cold War strategic alliance, you can call this phase. You can see in all the major developments, like USSR supported India in 1965 war, 1971 war, and like 1971 war, USSR played a very critical roles also. Supported UNSC, supported India's position in UNSC on Kashmir issue. So strategically India and USSR, you can see very small differences. Now this all changed in 1990s. This was the end of Cold War, disintegration of USSR, post-Cold War transition. And India was still having good relations with Russia. India was one of the few countries which completely repaid its loan to USSR to Russia, the new country. Now after this, in 2000 to 2010, we have seen this expansion of strategic partnership. To into economic aspects, into trade, into defense, into science and tech, into environment, all these aspects we have collaboration. Now from 2010s to present times, we are seeing it as a special and privileged relationships. So this is the overall construct of India-Russia relations, overall evolution of India-Russia relation. It hasn't been started recent past, and you know already the defense system dependence on Russia. 80% of still India's defense system are made in or collaboration with USSR or Russia. So we have strong strategic, we have strong, a long lasting, a time stood relationship with Russia. So this is why we have been cautious in criticizing Russia in Russia-Ukraine war. And there has been criticism on Indian government regarding what exactly is the strategic objectives India are achieving from this. So these dimensions has been like questioned, whether India is shifting from this policy or completely leaving India's idealism policy, whether India is siding with Russia. But India is also expanded the oil trade from Russia to more than 200 times before the war era. So lot of these associated developments, you can see the close historical correlation between India and USSR relations. That aspects, that level of mutual trust and mutual cooperation, that is even today reflected in India's handling of USSR and vice versa. Rest of the content, I think you can go through these. Not much of like strategic importance or analytical aspect. There's a factual content, you can easily go through these notes and get a hold of it. India's crypto, like these are different themes. This is about a cultural nationalism aspect, why New Zealand lawmakers have staged the Hakka dance against the divisive bill. Diaspora issues and diaspora, every other 2-3 years after you get a question directly from diaspora. So diaspora, you should know the numbers and what is the best strategy to study diaspora, but study region wise. Like in US the numbers is 5.2 million people. In US the numbers are 5.2 million people of Indian origin in US as of 2025. 21% of total Asian population in US. 174% increase since 2066% immigrants. So all these numbers are quite important. What is their significance? What is their challenges being faced by them and way forward? So similarly we have arranged for other countries also. Canada, what is the numbers? What are the significance? What are the issues being faced and way forward? For Middle East this becomes very important for this year. 8.99 million like Indians are there in Gulf, 90 crore, 90 lakh people. 1 crore people are there in Gulf. UAE, Saudi Arabia, these are the leading countries. 40% of India's remittances come from Gulf region. Recently there has been document like World Bank's remittances report which say in FY35 there has been 135 billion US dollar. That was the remittances that flowed to India for last 20 years or so. India has been in the top position of this global remittances report. Other aspects, importance, challenges, the Kuwait labor camp, the conflicts in West Asia, all this you can include here. Africa, India, Africa relations questions has came from this. So here also what are the numbers, what are the significance, what are some of the challenges faced here. Australia, even though it is a Western country, but not typically a Western country, but still there are some characteristics there, so we have put it separately. So this is how you should prepare like diaspora, and these are the areas from which questions have came. These themes and all you can read it from the material WHO's pandemic treaty, that is an ongoing deal with like global countries and WHO. Yeah, 70th anniversary of 1955 Bandung conference. So this is a little bit information you should understand, because there is 70th anniversary of this, and there is for some reasons or the other non-alignment movement is reoccurring in editorials in newspapers, and there are editorials questioning the continuing relevance, or is there any relevance in the present context for non-alignment movement. So let's have a like overall picture of this. This 1955 Bandung conference. Where exactly is this Bandung? This is in Indonesia. Now what is happening? This is the gathering of Asia African countries. and this underlied 10 principles. This is called as Bandung principles, and these principles were the basis for formulation of 1961 May, the first non-alignment movement summit happened. So these Bandung principles form the basis for this. And what are these principles? These are very similar to Panchsheel. You can just connect it. Political self-determination, mutual respect. You don't need to read all the 10, but this is the overall direction. Non-aggression, equality, peaceful coexistence. So these are the 10 principles that came out of this Bandung conference. Now, one major aspect was condemnation of colonialism, and all these principle has been adopted in 1961 non-alignment movement. Non-alignment movement 1961, currently it has 121 countries. Now, what is the direct objective? That is, we are not formally in support or formally against any of the major power blocks, whether it is the Western bloc led by US or the Eastern bloc led by Russia. These countries are not in practically against any of these countries, and the decision making, how it will happen on case by case basis, depending on the merit of the case, not being a membership in the power bloc. Where this happened, the 1961 summit, that happened in Belgrade, where it is Yugoslavia. Why NAM is losing relevance today? What is the reason? Because first major reason is the clear objective of NAM was the Cold War context. We are not against any of the power blocks. So what are the power blocks? It comes from Cold War context, and Cold War is over. There is no bipolar world. There is only unipolar US hegemony world. So in this context, there is no absolute value to this. The premises on which this NAM non-alignment movement was based has lost its relevance in the present world. So NAM is losing its relevance. Now, some of the objectives of NAM has also been achieved, like decolonization. It has been achieved to a great extent, like against apartheid in South Africa. Some of the objectives are unrealistic. You cannot have anything to do. For example, universal nuclear disarmament. This is not happening. So there is no role for NAM. Again, then you can go for trivial issues like institutional issues. There is no permanent house, there is no permanent charter, all these kind of other organizational issues. There is leadership conflicts, there is leadership issues, no cohesive vision among the members, all these things you can include. Then rights of alternate organizations like BRICS, like BIMSTEC, like SAARC, like other Quad, all these organizations are replacing this now. Then you can say the only acting as a discussion forum. There is no way to implement the policies, and the internal conflicts between the countries. All these has led to loss of relevance of NAM in the present context. But as a principles, the Bandung principles as well as the non-alignment movement, it still remains as a principle, it remains valid, and it still continues to guide India's foreign policy approaches. So this is a WTO, the current issues, that is the appellate body issues, US withdrawal and MFN status erosion of, and the Trump tariffs, the trade war. This is not something that is completely new. The trade war has been going on from Trump 1.0 time also. There has been gradual increasing of these tariffs between US and Russia before Trump 2.0 also. And there has been nothing WTO can do. Anyway, institutionally it is not functioning. Even recently there has been certain cases where India lost in WTO. And India was openly saying that we are not going to like follow the verdicts. Why? Because we believe that if we have contested the case again appellate body, we might have won the case. Since appellate body is not functional, we lost the opportunity to put our case properly. So we are not following this judgment. So even India is openly opposing like this, then WTO has lost its premise. It has lost its current relevance in the present world. IMO has legally adopted the first legally binding framework to reduce shipping emissions. Some Five Eyes Alliance, there was a summit that happened in New Delhi. That's why this is important. What is the alliance? You should have a clear picture. It's an intelligence sharing alliance that is formed after Second World War. Which are the countries? US, UK, then Canada, Australia, New Zealand. These are the 5 countries. Then you don't need to like dig deep into it, but an intelligence framework. What is the relevant? What is the role India can? How India can collaborate with this? Again, you can use this alliance as a sub point in any of the other answers as well. If a direct question hasn't came. Quad, what is the meaning of the Quad? It is started as a quadrilateral informal strategic forum consisting of 4 countries: Australia, India, Japan and United States, called as diamond democracies. Not break.